I just want to give you a little disclaimer that this is not going to be the most happy talk. You might feel a bit glum afterwards, but I think we should every now and then. So when we're talking about bad design, I'm not talking about like tacky design with like bad typefaces, but I'm talking about design that actually affects society. This is a map of Brooklyn in the 1930s. And when they designed this map, they designed a certain area that red, which was deemed undesirable for bankers and investors. And what that red area was, the area that was predominantly like a lot of African Americans lived there. So by default, they were segregated by design. And until now, that lack of investment can still be visible throughout society. And I feel that design kind of reflects the wants and needs of what people want at the time. So this you can see around London, this urban design trend called hostile urban architecture. And instead of tackling the issue of homelessness at the root, they decided to they just put these spikes everywhere and then they can just find another place to stay. And now moving to today, this is what the main problem is. Everyone wants something now, they want it immediately. And they don't want to wait for it. And there are many companies that are catering to this, and we trust them with everything. And it's all right, because Google, basically you can find any answer in the world. Like anything you're thinking about, you can find it. Facebook, you can connect to people like miles away, billions away. And Tinder, you can literally find the love of your life while you're in the bathroom. So it's a win-win for everyone. So I think it's safe to say right now we're in the golden age of convenience, where everything is just at a touch of the finger. You can not leave your house and just have the most productive day ever, which is kind of crazy, but there's always a catch to it. And the catch for me is that you are the product. Now you must have heard of this before. And what this basically means that every single thing you do, whenever you interact with these services, on the top of it, it's free. What's the harm? But every interaction you have is being monetized. And it's $1 billion business. Companies are making millions, being bought for millions just on the basis of your information alone. So when you go back to Google, Facebook, and Tinder, between Google and Facebook, they know if you're left-handed, if you're right-handed, they know if you suffer from depression, or even if you have a drinking problem. And with especially Facebook, they can see who you're going to fall in love with because they have the data that's watching YouTube people creep on each other and stalk each other's profile. But I want to give an example with Tinder of just what the future could be. So if on Tinder, when you're swiping away, you're curating a preference of what you like. Blonde, brunette, brown eyes, black eyes, and you're building up this profile. But that profile is being collected. So imagine that 2 weeks later down the road, you're being marketed a product with that perfect person. So obviously that might convince you a bit more. So for me, I believe we're in the golden age of surveillance, where all these companies are doing mass collection of your data, and we let them, that they're going to start experimenting with it. So I want to talk about Facebook. So in 2014, they conducted a study on 689,000 people where they manipulated the news feeds to show more positive or more negative content and see how that would impact their moods. And that test worked. It actually affected the moods. Now you think about that number, 689,000 people. That could be enough to get this guy in office. And that is kind of crazy that a company has this much power. But then this is what we agree to, because it all leads down to the one big lie we all tell ourselves. And it's this, that you agree to those terms and conditions. And in our industry, in this tech industry, we spend all the time in the world designing these beautiful interfaces. But when it comes to the first element, when you have to educate people, we fail. So for the company's point of view, it's awesome that they can make lots of money and they're protected subjectively. But as an individual, you've just given up everything. And who do I blame? I blame pretty much designers, more so than most people, but I blame a lot of people in the industry, because when you design this, you make a conscious decision to deceive the person. Because from a typography standpoint of view, if you want something to be boring to someone, you would make it all caps and you would make it sans serif. You wanted a pattern. So this is an intentional decision to not let people know what you're communicating. So this year there was a research with a program. 540 people signed up to the service. Almost 400 people ignored the privacy policy. And the ones who read it, they spent 45 seconds on it. And it's supposed to take 45 minutes. And if they actually read what they gave up, which legally is binding, is the firstborn child has social network access, and the data to be shared with the employees of the NSA. And they have no way to defend themselves. South Park had a whole episode about the iTunes terms and conditions. The episode is called The Human Centipede, so I don't want to put that image up, but you kind of get the idea. But it's crazy, if you read the iTunes terms and conditions, obviously you don't want to do sketchy stuff with your computer, but that's in your iTunes terms of conditions. And that's kind of, you don't know what you're signing up for inside it. And it's important to think about that because everything's going to become a business model. Every part of your life, from what you eat, from when you walk, it's all going to be quantified. And that's a pretty scary future, so we have to start thinking about it. If you think of this company, 23andMe, in theory, it's good for science. It's good to help you understand like your health and everything. But they've made no commitment to not sell that data to the next highest bidder, to pharmaceutical companies, to insurance people. And in terms of services, they say currently very few businesses request information, but that could change. And what happens when it's other people's data that affects you? So Facebook filed a patent this year with this fancy name, Authorization and Authentication based on an individual social network. And they gave an example, and in that they basically said, if you went for a loan to a bank, but your friends had poor credit rating, you could be rejected. And if you know that, how would that impact you? How would you impact your conduct with your friends? Would you make new friends? That's kind of a question that needs to be asked. And just knowing what the data will have impact, there's this interesting thing called a spiral of silence where people are trying to reduce what they're saying online. So in 2013, after the Snowden revelations, more and more people were reluctant to talk about it online. And they would talk about it in person, but online they started censoring themselves. And I think that's a pretty scary thing, because if you start censoring yourselves online on social media, you're going to start censoring what you're searching about for yourself and your curiosity. And that's kind of why I wanted to give this talk, because for me, I think privacy and data protection is really important, because all of us, whoever we are, wherever you are who you are because you had that freedom and that space to become that person. You could read stuff, you could look stuff without judgment, without being watched. And if you lived your life under a microscope, would you be the same person you are today? As depressing as I sound, I'm kind of an optimist that I believe technology is neutral. The same iPhone in your pocket could do amazing things. It can help people with autism, but at the same time, it can help people who are dysfunctional, like chasing after their partners. So it can go either way. And that's why I just want to be kind of cautious, because going to the future, there's this rise of the digital personal assistant. You do everything in your pocket, but the only price is you have to keep giving it information. And I believe in this advancement in technology, but we have to be conscious of the bad side and really think about it when we're going forward to make it better. So I was pretty negative, but now I'll try and end on a more optimistic note. So the first thing we should do is redesign the standard. So Carnegie Mellon, they worked on this thing called privacy facts, where they look at how data is being used in certain services, and they redesigned it like nutrition labels. About 7,000 words you can just understand in a glance. IDEO took this approach in communicating to users just how the data was being used in the fitness band. And you can understand that without even reading. And in our industry, we're always looking at the best end-to-end journey. We're like, this is the ideal route to go to, but you should look at where things can go wrong. Where can stuff be hacked? Where can stuff be leaked? And if you think if you're about your product, and it could be used in the most craziest way in the other part of the world. And if you think about someone in a repressive regime who's used your product, you might just think a bit better and make it a bit more secure. And I give Facebook a hard rap, but they're doing something right. Their data policy is not the easiest to find, but when they have it, they're breaking up information and making it visual, and they're trying to make it easy to understand. And especially for like more and more startups, this is becoming a selling point, just to being more secure and talking about privacy. If you look at Apple and you look at Google and Facebook, it's in Google and Facebook's Facebook model just to make money out of you, to get as much data as you. But Apple, they're fundamentally a product company. So they we'll protect it, it's cool. And that's how it works now. So that's a good point that you could use. So that's all well and good, but if you're wondering what could you do today to start making a difference, number one is you start keeping your conversations private. There are plenty of secure apps out there that will not share your data, unlike WhatsApp. So this one is recommended by Snowden. It's called Signal, easy to use, but it's pretty secure. And across the board, all the security experts recommend it. There are tools out there to help you make informed choices. So when you're online, you're doing Google search, you can get this plugin. It's called Privacy Icons. And on that, you're able to see at a glance what sites will share your data, what sites will track you. And it's just this slow education. But I recommend starting here. You can go home today, download Firefox, and get this plugin called Lightbeam. And you can see that if you go to one site, you can start seeing up how all your data is shared throughout every platform. So I just want to end with a quote by Edward Snowden that I think it stands true. And he said that arguing against privacy because you have nothing to hide is like arguing against freedom of speech because you have nothing left to say. So I hope you guys like that. Thank you.